shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each stage kick, we feel alive, alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. The heart of the motor in the screen. We're bound together by a football dream. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah, football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the crowd's electrified. There, under the stadium lights, where legends thrive. Every touchdown, we're close to clock west. In Detroit, we stand. Get down there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah, football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is January 21st, 2025. The show just keeps on rolling down the train tracks. The Lions' future is looking bright already. That's right. It's only one day after the left shoe dropped. The right shoe is going to drop today. And that's all right. Aaron Glenn, we know where he's going. We're going to talk about Aaron Glenn. We're going to talk about Ben Johnson. We're going to talk about the coaching roundup, what's going on here in Detroit, who's next, who's up. But our future looks bright, and I think that's where we're going to start this morning, is talking about some of the players that are coming back already in 2025. But before we do all that, good morning, Eric. How are you this morning?
I'm fantastic this morning. I'm back to normal. It is like negative 30 or 40 outside right now.
Wow.
Man, it hurt to breathe because it's only 40 feet from my house to my garage, right, to come out here and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought my lungs were going to freeze solid from the house to here. They canceled every school up here this morning. So college is closed. All the high schools and elementary schools, they're all closed up here right now.
We've had them closed on here for a while. Like, it's not even 0 degrees. You know, I'm it's like -4, but not even 0 degrees, and they close the schools.
Oh man.
And I get it. I mean, they don't want kids out there standing out at the bus stop, freezing and whatnot. But yeah, we used to be a tougher society. Like, I used to walk to school, to middle school, when it was minus whatever. That didn't bother me, man. You just got to dress for the weather.
Yeah.
You know, it's like playing in Chicago. You either got to have it or you don't. And Ben Johnson, all the reactions that I'm going to read this morning, it is a mixed bag, but I think that Lions fans are really feeling it right now, and they feel betrayed. My first reaction, obviously, yesterday is betrayal. You know, calling the dude a traitor. I never would have expected in a million years that he would have stayed in the NFC North. But we're going to talk about that second. First, let's get into the future here of what's going on. So the Lions, as I said yesterday morning, I expected that there was going to be a flurry of signings with the futures contracts within 24 to 48 hours. Well, it didn't even take 5 hours after we ended the show. There was a flurry of signings and moves that were happening in Detroit. A few players that we spoke about, a few that we didn't because we didn't talk about the practice squad. But let's talk about the large majority of the practice squad here. So
Sure.
11 practice squad players were signed to futures contracts. And here's the list. Abraham Boplon, Isaac Ukwu, center Kingsley Eguakon. I know I butchered the last name. Sorry, Kingsley. Jake Fromm. Jake from State Farm is back in the house. It's funny that they put one M on the back of this. It's supposed to be two, isn't it? Isn't Jake Fromm spelled with two M's?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it is. Yeah, spelling's tough. Deron Gilbert, Eric Hallett, tackle Jamarco Jones. Glad to see him back. TK85, he's back for like his 35th signing with the Detroit Lions over the last 3-4 years. Literally 35 different, what's that?
Aren't you limited how many years you can be signed to a practice squad?
He's got a futures contract, so he's not signed to the practice squad.
That's basically what that is.
To a degree, right? He's basically getting a shot. All these guys are getting a shot to come back for training camp. That's what it means.
The 90-man filler.
Yeah, that's right. You got defensive lineman Chris Smith. Glad to see him back. Lauren Strickland, safety. Interesting to see him back. I thought we lost him for a minute throughout the season, but he's back. And then cornerback Stanley Thomas Oliver. I thought that we just elevated him this past weekend to the 53-man roster.
We did. That's the one that I had no clue who that guy was out there. I'm like, I don't even know that name. It's this big giant name on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, was he wearing like 45 or 42 or something? I don't know what he was wearing, but
yeah,
he must have done enough in his limited amount of time in the game, or limited amount of time with the team this season, to be able to come back and have a second opportunity. But there was a few players that did not make this cut. And there was the first one that I spoke about yesterday was Quan Alexander. He did not make the cut. Jamar Jefferson did not make the cut. James Mitchell, the tight end that has not panned out for Brad Holmes, did not make the cut. And DPJ is gone. So that's your list so far. You've got 11 that are coming back for the 90-man, and you've got 5 guys so far that are going to be looking for a new team. So what's your quick thoughts on this list? There's going to be more coming, in over the next couple of days, but that's the quick list.
Oh yeah. And you knew Brad he's had this all ready to go all along, for the last few weeks, I'm sure. And this is just filler for the 90-man roster right now. We have to have backups of backups of backups, and you have to fill a 90-man roster. And I'm sure some of these will be de-elevated and elevated again a bunch of times. These are the guys at the back end of the roster, but they're important guys. If you go through, a lot of those guys played, snaps this year, and some of them played some meaningful snaps. They weren't starters by any means, but they helped get us through this absolute decimation of the defense this year when we had nobody left. They're the guys that came in and filled in. Yes. Some of them filled in admirably.
Well, I mean, Dan spoke about that yesterday. That the depth on this roster was real throughout this season, and you're only as good as your depth. It's something that I've always spoken about, and it's something that this team is taken very seriously. I mean, Dan Campbell said in the very beginning of the year, we have 69 guys on this team. It's not 53. It's not 46. It's 69, and we're going to need all of them. Now, you guys have also heard me say, I wish you wouldn't have said that, because he kind of put it out there that we're going to have a lot of injuries, and we did. So it's just, it was demoralizing to see what happened to this roster this year. We had so much going for us. Yeah, could we have been a NASCAR offense and tried to really just outscore everybody? Absolutely. But, the funny thing is, when you look at defenses winning championships, that's what everyone thinks, right? The defense, or a lot of people think the defense is the most important key. Well, Washington's not winning with a defense at all. Their defense is terrible. Mm-hmm. They've got like the 18th or 19th ranked defense in the league, and they're winning right now. It's because of their offense. So when I mentioned in the very beginning of the season, and we've gone through it numerous times this year, or this last year, offense wins championships, not defense. And you're seeing it happen right in front of your eyes, and it just happened to us on Saturday night. Now, yeah, there was a lot that went wrong in this game. We'll talk about some of that stuff later on too. Obviously, a lot of people have not healed from this, but let me get a poll up. I tried to get one up, but I spelled it wrong. So let me get it up real quick here. So Ben Johnson, did Ben Johnson? All right, let me reframe this. Is Ben Johnson a traitor by staying in the North? That's our poll to start the morning. I want to know what you guys feel. Traitor, it's kind of a rough word, but you know what I'm going with here. Was he right? Was he right to take any job, or do you feel that maybe he should have looked elsewhere and gone out of the North? Do you think that this is going to hinder what the Lions are able to do?
That poll's going crazy already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So have you seen all the memes of Benedict Arnold with Ben Johnson's face on him?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you guys. I was so exhausted yesterday. I took a breath, I just sat down and I just was thinking about the season and thinking about all the shows that we've done. And I mean, just the thousands of hours that I've put into this and you put into this. And it was like 5:30 p.m. last night. I was like, man, I'm really exhausted. This has been a long season. I hope that we have longer seasons, but I seriously went to bed at like 7:30 last night.
Yeah.
And I got up, the middle of the night, was going to stay up, from 2 a.m. on, but then I decided, I better just get some rest. So today is truly off the cuff. I've really not done a whole lot of preparation for today. It's going to be some conversation. I know Eric has a few things. I have a few things, but a lot of this is just, we're kind of just wrapping up the season, right? We're going to talk about a lot of things, and then we're going to move forward. By the end of this week, I'm hoping that we can just bury the season and we can move forward. We can watch the rest of the games, and we'll have a lot more, conversation about who's coming into this team here this season and who's going to help this team win. So obviously Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are busy this morning finding our new offensive coordinator, and we're going to talk about some of that here in just a moment. Before we get there, Eric, do you have anything you want to share real quick? Anything that's quick and easy?
I don't know.
You had the most watched team or something like that. I know I talked about it already, but you had something. You had something on that.
Yeah, let me look down here. So the Detroit Lions this year were the most viewed team in 2024. So let me see if I can't get into this here real quick. So the Detroit Lions were the most watched team in nationally televised games during the 2024 regular season. And this is from Athlon Sports. The Detroit Lions season came to a disappointing end on Saturday night. In a season where they were believed to be a favorite to claim the NFL's ultimate prize, they ended up not winning a single playoff game. However, the team did claim a few exciting distinctions over the course of the 2024 season. They were the best team in the NFC and tied for the NFL's best record of 15-2. The Lions also had the NFL's best offense, scoring 33.2 points per game during the regular season. According to Fox Sports, that was also enough to make them the fourth highest scoring team in league history. Now they can add another achievement to this list for the season. According to Sportico's Anthony Krupe, the Lions were the NFL's most watched team during the 24 regular season. The Lions played 10 games on national television and averaged an impressive 22.65 million viewers in those games. That was enough to barely edge out the Dallas Cowboys, who averaged 22.47 million per game. It's not hard to see why the Lions have resonated with football fans enough to earn this top spot. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that any time that you've kind of risen from the ashes, right? I really love what Amik Robertson said, and I'm working on a T-shirt. I'm going to start some merch this year. I did it in the very beginning, but I wasn't doing it the right way. So I want to start some merch this year and just do a few pieces that represent the channel, that represent the Lions, represents our Rocked On Detroit Lions faithful group, and good morning to William Daniel, who just joined our membership group of the Lions Faithful. Big shout out to you, buddy. Let me get you the Amik the missile hit, because I love it.
On 3rd and 14, Jones has got it, setting up a screen, and it's blown up. Oh my goodness! Amik Robertson just sent ETN back to Jacksonville.
There are so many good memories from this season. There really is, and we're going to be able to touch on a lot of those, as we get into the dead season, right? Once the Super Bowl ends, it really dies out for about a month. There's always news. There's always something going on, but we'll be at the combine in no time, and things will be moving forward. But I do want to start with a quote. So I kind of got away from this last season, but I want to just kind of give a quote every day. We can talk about it or not talk about it, but at least let's just start with a quote. So this is something that I guess it's something that I've always followed in my life because of the golden rule, and you want to treat others how you want to be treated, right? Small minds discuss people, right? Average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss ideas. And I always felt that anything that I've done throughout my life or on this channel is always try to discuss great ideas. The ideas about this team. And what I give you every morning, what Eric gives you every morning, is ideas, right? These are our opinions, mostly, and a lot of it's fact-finding research that we bring out and discuss. So we also discuss events, right? Talking about the Detroit Lions, we're talking about events, daily events, your Lions events. So that any average mind can do that. But small minds discussing people, I think you know what that means too. If you want to gossip and talk crap about others, it takes a real small mind, not a whole lot of brain power to do that. But great minds are going to discuss ideas, and that's what we're trying to do here on Rocked On Detroit Lions, is discuss great ideas and all the events each and every day. So that's our quote for the day. Moving on here. We've got some replacements, right? I talked about the replacements last week. There's a few people that are inside our building at Allen Park, right, that can fill in for Ben Johnson. So Ben Johnson's out. It's a move that was met with praise by fans and media members alike, only for Chicago, primarily. And the reactions from the Bears players are already starting to trickle out. Matter of fact, quarterback Caleb Williams liked the NFL's post announcing the news in roughly 3 minutes. You think he was waiting for it, right? Meanwhile, safety Jaquan Brisker on X shared his excitement, and he said, boom. And then a GIF that read, "It's about sending a message." And then he went on to write, this is the turning point. New times, let's get it to Bears. Well, you guys are getting a great mind. Absolutely. You're getting a great mind. You're getting an offensive genius. But I will say this. Even though our chat this morning is 82% in the boat that Ben is a traitor for staying in the North, I want to clarify something. I would have rooted for Ben anywhere else but Chicago, anywhere else but Green Bay, and anywhere else but Minnesota. It's just one of those things, like, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? We just went to war with the North over the last couple of seasons and finally did some things that this team has never been able to do. And for me, it's like you're taking the entire playbook and you know all of the ins and outs about our team. You know all of our weaknesses. You know all of our strengths. To think that Ben doesn't know anything about what we do defensively, you'd be wrong. He knows everything. He was the third in line, right? I mean, it's second in line under Dan Campbell. He knows everything. So now, yep, we're going to have to change all the terminology. No matter what, all the terminology is going to have to change for the Lions offense. It's a given. It's probably going to change year to year anyway. It's all going to change. But he knows everything about Jared Goff. He knows every weakness about Jahmyr Gibbs, if he has one. That's kind of the thing that I'm more concerned about, is that he has all of this inside information. It's like insider trading. He took all that information and brought it to Chicago. And if you don't think that it's going to be tough enough, facing Chicago, and they're going to be a much better team this next year. Imagine now you're going up against the guy that knows everything about your team. That is why I called him a traitor, because you just don't do that. I know it doesn't happen often. It happened last year with Dan Quinn to Washington. But how long was Dan Quinn, a part of Dallas? And really, was Dallas doing anything that was incredible? Not really. But it's still the same thing. I mean, I don't know if Dan Quinn got read the riot act by Dallas fans. I honestly haven't looked. But I know it doesn't happen often. And that was my knee-jerk reaction to this. Ben, anywhere else, man, I would have been rooting for you to see us in a Super Bowl or to see us in the playoffs or something. I was hoping that it was going to be in the AFC. But I think he just kind of sold himself out too. Like that, Chicago is a very tough place to win. It's a very tough crowd. I mean, it's like New York. If you do anything wrong, man, he's going to get beat up emotionally and mentally from those fans. He had it really good here. I do wish him nothing but the best, but I still feel he's a traitor.
Yeah, we were talking about this off air before the show even started today, about what our feelings were. And I said, if Ben would have went to the Raiders or the Jaguars like I thought he was going to do, that would have made it so much fun to root for Ben Johnson to do well and to be able to meet him in the Super Bowl. How fun would that have been to have a Super Bowl where you're up against your former coordinator that you haven't seen all year long and go toe-to-toe with him, and let's go mano a mano. Let's see what can happen. That would be so much fun to be able to have another team I can root for in the AFC, because I don't root for any other teams. You know, we've never had a coaching tree come from the coaching staff for the Lions in my entire lifetime. I know it's happened once or twice before, but it was a long time ago, 70s, early 80s. And we've never had an established coaching tree in Detroit like Green Bay did, like San Francisco did, like the Cowboys did. Like all these other really good teams have always had coordinators go on to be head coaches, right? And I always wanted the Lions to have that. And now that we're getting it, great. But you go to a team we have to play twice a year. There is no chance at a Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell Super Bowl now. Now they're up against each other. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. Him going right down the road, and we have to see him twice a year. So now I'm in the mindset of, all right, you want to go down the road? Well, you're going to find out going down the road. We're going to take you to the woodshed twice a year. So
that's the other side of it, right? I think that's the right approach too, is look, this is still Dan Campbell's team. This is still a very well-built team. And so the other side of that coin is, well, we know Ben Johnson's weaknesses too. We know what Ben Johnson has, systematically done over the last few seasons, and where his weaknesses, reside and his tendencies. He is an extremely, bright individual, right? He's done a wonderful job with what Dan Campbell built. This is Dan Campbell's offense. It always has been. It always will be. And so the other side of this coin is we know what he has done and not done. And look, you still got to beat us. This is still the new Detroit Lions. This is still Dan Campbell's team. You still have to find a way to beat the Detroit Lions. So at the end of the day, now let's talk about who's going to replace Ben and who's going to take this team to the newest heights or newer heights, bigger and better things. Ben couldn't get us to a Super Bowl. He called some real sloppy crap in this game that, has really taken some of the fans by surprise. And I think a lot of fans are right in their thinking. And here, let me just read a few quotes from some fans over the last couple of days, because I know I'm not the only one that feels this way.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And, this is like I was telling Will, this is like you slipped on the ice and you broke your leg. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what us losing in the playoffs was. We didn't see it coming. Boom. Oh man, we're down. You broke your leg. You're in a cast. You're coming out of the hospital. And you're going to get in the car. You go to put your seatbelt on and you go to slam the door and you slam your finger in the door. And now you broke your finger as well. Well, that was Ben Johnson leaving to the Bears. So it just, it's one thing after another. It's like we didn't even get time to process losing this game and losing out on our chance to go to the Super Bowl, and we lose Ben Johnson. We had zero time.
Well, you know what? They don't care how we feel. I mean, the NFL is not for long, right? It moves on quickly. But you know what the difference is? Is we're going to be the Ronnie Lott of that individual that just, slammed their finger in the door. We're just going to cut it off because that's what Dan Campbell would do. We're just going to cut it off and move on. Here, you can have my finger. Come meet me on the field. We're ready to go. So Ben Johnson always got too much credit for being put in the most opportunistic situation possible for the first time offensive quarter in the NFL. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell built the foundation that led the change. Let's see here. He helped the Lions lose their best shot at a Super Bowl in 50 years. That's what he helped. Or, we are not mad that he left. We are mad that he had a job and staff lined up before the Lions even played a playoff game. Not saying he threw it on purpose, but his heart and mind were definitely not in Detroit on Saturday. And we as fans have the right to feel betrayed. That's the other thing that we haven't spoken about. Is Ben Johnson was already interviewing. Remember when I said it last week? And I said, this thing is going to come down and other guys in the building are going to get snaked, right? They're going to get poached. And Ben Johnson is interviewing these guys. So now you've taken that I hate to use the C word, and no, it's not CU, it's CA. I hate to use the C word where he infected that locker room. He infected that building by running around and asking people, hey, would you join me if I went to Chicago? Would you join me if I went to Jacksonville? Would you join me if I went to Vegas? This is why I'm never going to back down from the fact that I feel the NFL has got a very big problem on their hands with allowing this to happen. I'm not saying that Ben Johnson did this, but imagine for a moment if he threw this game because he just didn't care. Imagine for a moment that he threw this game because he knew he was going to Chicago and he didn't want the Lions to get a Super Bowl before he got one in Chicago. There's so many different variables to this. So many. You are favored 8.5 to 9.5 points from day to day, and you go and you lose the game the way that you did because part of that was offensive play calling. A large part of it was defense. Yep, and Jared Goff had a hand in this too. Everybody did.
You had to know that he had told Jared Goff.
Oh, I mean, and that's the other thing. It's affecting their psyche. You know, the players in the locker room knew, or they at least had a very good idea that he was gone. That's one thing. They expected that. You expect to know that your coordinator is going to move on. We all knew that. I don't think that was the surprise. I think the surprise was in the betrayal that people feel is you're going to Chicago.
Yeah.
And this has been a team that, I mean, it's been a bitter rivalry. I would say that the Vikings is kind of turning out to be our better rivalry at this point. It's always been Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay's always been part of that. But when you look at the shape of the NFC, the NFC North, and who our biggest, most bitter rivalries have been, all three of them are part of the problem. But I would say that Chicago's kind of been that, I don't know, that little stepbrother, if you will, that you just don't like, or for whatever reason, it was always a rough game. I don't know. I can't stand the fact that we've got to deal with them. And I'm right here with you guys, with all these messages. I mean, there's thousands of messages, and some people take things the wrong way, but we absolutely appreciate what Ben Johnson did. 1,000%. That's never going to go away. 1,000% appreciate what he did. Don't appreciate what you did yesterday. That's what I don't appreciate.
I've been thinking about it. There's one way to stop people from poaching our offensive coordinator. And that's if Dan Campbell just takes it over himself.
Well, if he calls the plays, right, you're still going to have an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, but he can just call the plays and he doesn't have to worry about losing someone.
Yeah, I don't know if calling the plays as a head coach is such a great thing. I mean, I know Andy Reid does it. I'm sure Ben Johnson's going to do it. What's that?
Sean McVay does it. The guy for 49ers does it. There's a whole bunch of them that do it.
There's like 5 or 6 of them in the NFL, but I would say that I don't know that I'd prefer to have Dan Campbell calling plays.
I don't know.
I don't think that I prefer that, but he's going to do what's best for the team. Whatever Dan does is what Dan's going to do. So, all right, we're gonna bury that little part of this because we're gonna lose another guy today too. But let's talk about Ben Johnson's replacements for a moment. So I know there's been a lot of names floating around. I want to talk about the internal guys that are going to move on. I'm going to end this poll. So 80%, 79%, 105 votes.
Wow.
79% think that Ben Johnson's a traitor. 21% say no. My final take on it is, Ben, good luck. Just not when we see you on Sundays or whatever day it's going to be.
Yeah, beat up on the Packers and the Vikings, please.
Right. There you go.
That's my only ask of Ben Johnson. Just go undefeated with those guys. I don't care about the rest.
All right, so I'm gonna start another poll, and while I'm doing this, Eric, why don't you talk about, or just kind of get us started here? My picks for internal replacements are in no particular order, but I'm going to tell you who my number one internal replacement is. It may surprise you, but if you kind of want to walk through some of the internal replacements, just do a couple or whatever, and then I'll jump in and we'll keep on going.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the first one on my mind, and that is quarterbacks coach Mark Brunell. Okay. So Mark Brunell played in the NFL for 18 years. And I know that he has said that he doesn't want to be an offensive coordinator. But in my mind, he knows Jared Goff better than anyone else on this offensive staff. He's been working with Jared Goff for the last 4 years as the quarterback's coach. And Mark Brunell's got a little bit of coaching experience. So Mark Brunell led a Jacksonville high school program to a trio of playoff appearances and the school's first playoff victory. Mark joined the Lions as part of Campbell's initial staff and worked closely with quarterback Jared Goff as the quarterback's coach, helping the veteran to his best statistical production of his 9-year career in 2024. So I know Mark has said that he doesn't want to be a coordinator. He just likes being an assistant, likes being a quarterback's coach. But has he ever been offered a coordinator position? I don't think he has. So this is one where I don't know if they have to interview or they have to go through certain channels if they want to just promote from within, if they even have to do interviews with anyone else. If it's promote from within, I don't know what all they have to do, because I know there's the Rooney Rule and all this other stuff. So I'm not too sure. But to me, he would be the most logical choice for me because he knows Jared Goff better than anyone. I don't know what he has for this, offensive mind, but the guy played 18 years in the NFL. If anyone's going to know how to quarterback and how to get the most out of Jared Goff, it's going to be Mark Brunell. And Mark Brunell, if you've ever met him, is one of the most even-keeled, laid-back, quiet personalities you will ever meet. He is very even-keeled. He doesn't get super upset. He doesn't get super emotional. And that's the kind of person you need to be your offensive coordinator. So if you have a bad play, just rub it off. Let's go to the next one. Don't let it take down everything. Don't let it take away from your focus of the ultimate goal. And I think he'd be a perfect fit.
So Mark Brunell is not even in my top 5, just so you know. He's not.
Really?
Not even in my top 5. Look, I love Mark Brunell.
Yep.
Now, he would fit the mold of Dan Campbell calling plays, and Mark Brunell is the OC. Yeah. That would fit, because I feel that, if Dan Campbell was going to call plays, I mean, why not have Brunell as your OC? But I think keeping Brunell right where he is probably the best thing for Detroit. Now, here's the problem. Mark Brunell said that he would follow Ben to Jacksonville and that Vegas was too far. I'm counting Brunell is going to be in Chicago. I just, why wouldn't he? Chicago is no further away from Jacksonville than Detroit. It's the same plane flight.
Yep.
So, and there's probably more flights out of Chicago than there is in Detroit. So I think he's gone. I think Mark Brunell is going to be in Chicago.
Well, that Ben Johnson's going to take a few people with him. It's going to happen. All right. Next up on my list, passing game coordinator, Tanner Engstrand. So Engstrand, he came up to the coaching ranks, and he started when he was hired by Coach Matt Patricia. He stayed on the staff through the transition to Campbell, and he backfilled Johnson's role as the tight ends coach in 2022 after Ben Johnson was promoted to offensive coordinator. Engstrand has been serving as the team's passing game coordinator for the past 2 seasons. Before coming to Detroit, the former college quarterback worked his way up from graduate assistant under Jim Harbaugh to offensive coordinator at the University of San Diego. So he has been an offensive coordinator before. He also served as an analyst for Harbaugh at the University of Michigan and as an offensive coordinator for the DC Defenders of the XFL. Engstrand interviewed for offensive coordinator openings with Tampa Bay and New England last offseason, but did not get the jobs. So there's another interesting.
So you're talking about Tanner?
Yep. Tanner.
So as far as Tanner goes, from what I understand, he's been training with Ben Johnson. The one thing that I want to be very clear on is there was a guy that we brought in last year who's at the top of my list who we'll talk about. I think that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes made a couple of moves last season that they were getting prepared for this to happen this year. And I'll go into it in just a minute. But Tanner, he attended Grossmont College and transferred to San Diego State, where he was the quarterback from 2003 to 2004. He began his coaching career at San Diego as a graduate assistant under Jim Harbaugh. He later coached running backs and quarterbacks at San Diego before being promoted to offensive coordinator in 2011. Engstrand also was an offensive analyst under Harbaugh at Michigan in 2018. He started stealing signs first. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, we can have our own version of the sign stealer guy.
Yeah, Connor. So his coaching history is quite lengthy. I mean, Tanner has a ton of experience. When you look at the kid, and I know I call him a kid, but he looks like a kid. When you look at him, you don't feel like it exists in him, but he's got a lengthy history of experience. So 2005 to 06, he was a graduate assistant. 07 to 08, he was running backs coach. 09 to 10, he was quarterbacks coach. 11 to 12, he was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, both roles. And then 13 through 17, he was an assistant head coach and offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach at San Diego. He took all three jobs on. So, I mean, he graduated every single year in that system under Jim Harbaugh. And finally, in 2017, so he was there for 12 seasons. In 2017, he left to be the assistant. He left to be an offensive analyst for Michigan. So he followed Jim Harbaugh. And then in 2020, he was with the DC Defenders as an offensive coordinator and running backs coach. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh did not keep him around. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised. And then that was my dig at Jim because he has no loyalty to anybody. Then the Detroit Lions hired him in 2020 as an offensive assistant. And then in 21, he was offensive quality control. In 22, he was tight ends coach and passing game coordinator. And then in 23 to present, he's been the passing game coordinator. So he understands what's going on with the passing game. Is he ready to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL? I'm going to say no. That's just my gut feeling. I don't think he's ready, but this is another guy that may follow Ben because he could be the quarterback's coach. If Mark Brunell stays, I think that he could end up being a quarterback's coach for Caleb Williams because he has the history. He's been working with Ben. He's still young, right? I think that there's an opportunity there. Unless you want an older quarterback's coach like Mark Brunell to kind of rein in Caleb Williams, which might be the better plan. If you go with somebody a little bit younger, Caleb might, try to throw his weight around. You go with somebody a little bit older, they can kind of snap him into shape. Probably a better play, and that's why Mark Brunell might be the better option there. But Tanner, for me, he's actually my number 4 on my 1 through 4 list. I got 4 guys that have made my list for internal. He's my number 4 option. He might be the most experienced to some people because he's been around Ben for a while, but I just look at some other guys that the Lions brought in to be ready. So who's next on your list?
All right. So I'm not going in any particular order. I'm just going down the list. The next one is offensive line coach Hank Fraley. So Hank Fraley was a center in the NFL. Fraley started his coaching career as Engstrand's offensive line coach at the University of San Diego. There we go. We got a tie together there. From there, he went to San Jose State, then the Minnesota Vikings and UCLA before joining the Lions as an assistant offensive line coach alongside Jeff Davidson in 2018. Fraley took over the room in 2020 and has been consistently and strongly supported by the team's players. Taylor Decker advocated for Fraley to remain on the staff following the hiring of Campbell. This week, all pros Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell pleaded with the organization to retain Fraley after he interviewed with the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator opening. So Hank Fraley has a second interview later today for the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator job. So he has an in-person interview this week. He did the Zoom meeting interview last week, and this week he has a second in-person interview to be their offensive coordinator. So he's getting some serious interest from the Seahawks. Why wouldn't he get some serious interest from the Lions?
Yeah, I feel you. I could agree with the interest level that, you know, if other teams are looking at them, why wouldn't the Lions? To answer a question in the chat, Precision Staining wanted to know how many coaches can Ben or Aaron take with them. The answer is unlimited. There's no definitive rule that I have seen by the NFL that says that they can only take one or two or three. From what I understand, it's unlimited. Does it usually happen that they just poach the entire team? No. And matter of fact, Ben Johnson's already looking at, it's Dennis Allen. So Dennis Allen is the former New Orleans head coach to be the defensive coordinator, and Darren Ritzie as the special teams coordinator. So that kind of leaves OC open, quarterbacks coach open, and I think that's where you might see it come from the Lions in Chicago. So you were talking about Hank Fraley.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hank Fraley has been around for a while. Obviously, the Lions' offensive line is not happy. They do not want to see this guy go away. I really didn't expect Hank to become an offensive coordinator, but what did I say last year? I highlighted Hank a few times, and I said that this guy is probably one of the most underwhelming as far as he doesn't get a ton of looks, but he's extremely intelligent. He's been around for a while. I actually said that I could see Hank being a head coach someday. He kind of reminds me of Andy Reid, not just because of body size, but because of intelligence and kind of where he's raising through the ranks of the NFL. I expect Hank Fraley to do wonderful things in the NFL. I expected him to get some serious looks this season. However, go ahead.
Do you ever meet someone that you've never met before and you just see them from 50 feet away and you can tell right away whether that person carries themselves in a meaningful way or not? Like not that they're self-important, but that they got their stuff together. When you see Hank Fraley before a game out there walking around, talking to the players, the way he holds his shoulders up and he holds his head up high, you can tell that the guy is a leader just by looking at him in the first 5 seconds that you've never seen him in your life. You can tell just by looking at the guy that he's got his stuff together.
Yeah.
And you can tell the way everyone interacts with him that they all look up to him.
He's a solid dude. Obviously, the offensive line knows that. They've said nothing but amazing things about him over the last few days. Matter of fact, they're saying over my dead body, is Hank Fraley going to leave this team, is what, Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker are all saying. But Frank, Haley's has had a long history, not only in the NFL, but also as a coach. So he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2000. He was with the Eagles from 2000 to 2005. He was with the Browns from 06 to 09 and the Rams in 2010. So a 10-year career in the NFL. And then he went on to be a coach in San Diego, another interesting component that, Tanner was there at the same time. I think you just mentioned that. San Jose State in 2013 as the offensive line coach. And then he was with the Vikings from 2014 to 2016 as the assistant offensive line coach. So he made his jump to the NFL as an assistant. Well, then after that experiment, he went back to college to be an offensive line coach with UCLA in 2017. And then he joined the Lions in 2018. He had the unfortunate experience to be with the Quinn Tricia era, but he was the assistant offensive line coach for 18 and 19, and then the Lions hired him bumped him up to the offensive line coach in 2020, where he remained even when Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes came into this team in 2021 or 2020, really. So he's got the history, right? He has the knowledge. He's an extremely bright mind. You've seen the way that he's been able to command this offensive line. He absolutely has a wealth of knowledge. And part of creating an offense starts in the trenches. If you don't know the trenches very well, it's kind of hard to create an offense that works so fluidly. And I think that when you look at what Hank has been able to do, it makes sense that he would know how to create a really good running game, which is where all teams try to start, is on the ground. I expect him to get some looks. Hank, honestly, last week, he was probably my number one option just because I did not want the Lions to lose him. He's not my number one option anymore. And he's not because there's a guy that we brought in last year that is my number one option. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Antwaan Randle El for just a moment.
That's what I was going to do.
So go ahead, talk about Antwaan and tell me what you think about him.
Sure. I was going to go order here just to save that one person for last. And we did get to 75 likes today, so ads are going to get turned off here in just a second. We have over 200 people. Could we get everybody to just click back, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button? Let's get that count up. Every 250 subscribers, Will gives away another signed, autographed mini helmet. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It'll help out the channel, and it'll help you out as well.
Yeah, so our goal was 10,000 subscribers, and I totally expected to get there. With us going into the Super Bowl, I expected it to really climb, but 10,000 by the Super Bowl is the goal, or by the new league year is still the goal. I think we'll get there. You guys will all subscribe. I have no doubt in my mind. But all right, Antwaan Randle El. Let's talk about him.
All right. Here we go. Antwaan Randle El, a former Super Bowl winner with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The college quarterback turned pro receiver has worked with some outstanding talent as a position coach. In Tampa Bay, he led the room with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Then in Detroit, Randle El has overseen the development of Amon-Ra St. Brown from a 4th-round draft pick into a 2-time All-Pro, as well as Jameson Williams into a 1,000-yard receiver. Randle El interviewed for the Buccaneers coordinator job last offseason and did not get it. So he has aspirations to become an offensive coordinator if he was taking interviews for that position last year.
So you kind of highlighted, a little bit of what he's been able to do. I mean, look at what this receiver group has been. In 2021, when Antwaan Randle El became the wide receivers coach for the Detroit Lions, well, we had a 4th-round pick that year named Amon-Ra St. Brown. And we quickly watched Amon-Ra St. Brown climb to one of the best receivers in the league. It wasn't in 21, but he really was working hard and becoming something by the end of that season. And then in 2022, he never looked back. And I think a lot of that was instilled by Randle El. And we see the relationship that those two have. Matter of fact, it was Antwaan Randle El that kind of barged into Amon-Ra St. Brown's, he was doing a commercial or something, and it was partly in German, and he kind of barged in and was acting like he was going to do the commercial with him. And it was on the screen there on the teleprompter. He said, "Hey, let's read this together." And that's when he said that Amon-Ra made the All-Pro. Mm-hmm. And you could just see how Amon-Ra St. Brown reacted, and you could tell that they have a special relationship. But I certainly believe in Antwaan Randle El's ability. I believe in his ability to become an offensive coordinator. But there's still one more guy that's ahead of him. So let's talk about Antwaan for just a moment. As a player, the common theme here is as a player. All of your Detroit Lions coaches, or a large majority of them, were former players. I don't think that that's going to change. But Pittsburgh Steelers, 02 to 05, Redskins, 06 to 09, Steelers, 2010. So about an 8-year career in the NFL. Stocks are going crazy today. Tampa Bay Bucks, as a coach, he was the offensive assistant in 2019 to 2020. And then with the Lions in 2021, he was one of the first hires by Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes as the wide receivers coach, where he has stayed. So he doesn't have as long of a history in coaching. He's only been a coach in the NFL since 2019, about 9 years after he ended his NFL career. So my only thought here is he's getting there, right? I think he's getting close, but I don't know that he's ready just yet. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. I just look at the history, and there's one other guy that is still on this team, who I hope stays, that the Lions brought in last year, that I think has the most experience to become our next offensive coordinator, assuming the Lions hire from within. We'll talk about the external stuff, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I know that Eric has a bunch of names for external. I haven't done as much research yet on the external. But Antoine Randall L's been he's been a phenomenal part of this team ever since he's been with this team. We've seen so many different records being broken, multiple receivers having amazing career in Detroit. Even the tight ends, with Sam Laporta coming in as a rookie, all of these guys have had to get taught by Randall L. And the fact that he was an 8-year NFL player, that brings a lot of credibility to, what receivers are going to listen to. Young, impressionable minds are going to listen to you, for doing it 8 years in the season or 8 years in the NFL. That's a long time in the NFL these days. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are going to stick with former players. So my number one guy, go ahead.
Yeah, and even Engstrand, he was a college player. He was a college quarterback. Every single one of these guys played ball at some level.
Yeah. So my number one guy is the guy that the Detroit Lions brought in last season. Do you know who it is?
Yep.
Scotty Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty Montgomery is the guy that I believe that the Lions brought in to be ready to take the reins. He was brought in 2023 to be the assistant head coach and the running backs coach. To gain an assistant head coach position from day one is pretty incredible. And I think that the Lions did that expecting that they were going to have to bring him in as an offensive coordinator when Ben Johnson left. Scotty Montgomery has a wealth of experience. Now, I did mention last week I was a little concerned of all the little 1-year stops here or there, but that's probably less of a concern now that you understand that a lot of guys move on quickly, in the ranks of from NFL or back to college or back to NFL or whatever. So Carolina Panthers, former player, history, 2000 is when he started as a player in the NFL. He was with the Denver Broncos from 2000 to 2002. He was with the Oakland Raiders in 2003. And he was with the Georgia Force in 2005. So he was no longer in the NFL. He was with whatever team that was back then. As a coach, he began in 2006, where he was a wide receivers coach at Duke till 2009. And then he jumped into the NFL as the wide receivers coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers from 2010 to 2012. One second here.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010 to 2012, I can't remember who he was coaching back then for the Steelers. If any names kind of come to your head, let me know in the chat who you can think of. I can't remember all the names that were on the Steelers back then. So anyway, then he went back to Duke in 2013 as the assistant head coach, offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator, and the wide receivers coach. 3 positions. I held up 4, but 3 positions. And then in Duke, from 2014 to 2015, he was the associate head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. So he dropped passing game coordinator and dropped wide receivers coach and just became the associate head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. And then he went to Eastern Carolina in 2016 to 2018 to be the head coach. And then in 2019 to 2020, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And then with the Indianapolis Colts in 21 to 22, he was the running backs coach. And with the Detroit Lions since 2023 to present, he has been the assistant head coach and the running backs coach. All of us have listened to Scotty Montgomery. He is an amazing motivator. He was highlighted in this last Saturday's game on the big board with his speech from last week. And that is why I believe he is our next offensive coordinator. He has my vote. I would love for you guys to tell me in the chat, and then, of course, in the comments, later on, what do you think about Scotty? Where do you guys have our internal options ranked? For me, it is Scotty, it is Fraley, it is Antoine Randall L., and then it is Tanner Ingstring in that order. That's 1 to 4. But Scotty is the guy that I believe can take this offense to the next level. We've seen what he's been able to do in the run game. And for all of us that wanted us to pound that rock on 3rd and 1 at the 17-yard line, Scotty would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably would have been in this game. He wouldn't have put Ben Johnson, or he wouldn't have put, he wouldn't have put Jared Goff into a position to fail at that moment. He would have put us in a position of power to win, which would have been on the backs of Jahmyr Gibbs and or Montgomery, which, you could have taken a shot with either one of them to get 1 yard. So what do you think about Scotty?
Yeah, I think Scotty's the perfect person to take this over. And I think that's what he was brought here to do. And that's why you don't hear about him taking interviews with any other teams, because he was brought here to be brought up. Because we've known for years, we've known for 2 or 3 years that Aaron Glenn wanted to be a head coach, that Ben Johnson was flirting with being a head coach, because 2 years ago, Ben Johnson was getting interviews. Last year, he was getting interviews. This year, he's getting interviews. So we knew eventually he was going to go. So I think Dan's been preparing for 2+ seasons now to put things in place. And that's something we'll touch on with the defensive side of the ball as well, where we have Scotty Montgomery is probably both you and I number 1 for the offensive coordinator position. We also have someone like that on the defensive side.
Yep.
That was brought in the exact same way.
Yep.
And I think for the exact same reason. And
that's no secret. It's Terrell Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at what the Lions did last year, it was, okay, at some point we're going to lose Ben and we're going to lose Aaron. How are we going to get ahead of this? And I think the Lions did an amazing job by bringing in one of the sharpest minds on the defensive line. He's been flirted as the most intelligent, the best defensive line coach in the league, and that is Terrell Williams. And I think that when you see them bringing in these two guys at the same time, it made a lot of sense. And now it really makes a lot of sense because they've had a year in the system. They're the most senior at their positions. Or respective positions, and I think it fits. But continue with what you're saying there.
Yeah, I think they've had a plan in place. They're not going to get caught with their pants down. They're just not going to do it, and they've known that these guys are going to go. And listen, Dan Campbell came out, what was it, a week or 2 ago, right before the playoff game, and said, these guys deserve to be head coaches. I want them to be head coaches. We have been grooming them all season to be head coaches. So once a week, they have a leadership meeting on anyone that wants to become a head coach or get promoted. You go to these meetings once a week and learn how to get promoted and learn how to be a head coach, learn how to be a coordinator, learn what you need to learn, and you can ask the questions you need to ask. What job does that? What leader does that? A real leader does that. You should always be grooming the next person to take over for you in case something happens. So let's say
I can tell you in all my years of being in executive sales management that when I hired people, I wanted people to be better than me. And I'm not saying, I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but I wanted people to be better than me. And the reason why is I didn't want to have to be out there doing sales, to be honest with you. I just wanted to lead and continue doing what I was good at, which was creating philosophy. And eventually that happened. I mean, I had people that were smashing my sales records. That just made me look better. It made me look smarter for what I was doing, but I hired good people, and that was the good thing, about what I did, is just hiring good people that were willing to put it all on the line, that were willing to learn, that wanted to be a sponge. And not a lot of people do that. They're afraid that, they're going to hire someone that is going to be better than them and it would make them look bad. No, it's the exact opposite. An owner of a company that looks at you and says, man, you hired someone that's even better than what you've been able to produce. Thank you. They're not going to say, well, I'm going to put this guy in charge now. Why would they do that? If you have an eye for talent, why would they want to, kick you out and put somebody in charge that you hired? It doesn't work that way. But when I did leave companies, you saw those guys and some of the ladies rise to the next level, which it's always fun to see. Same thing here. You want to hire someone that can push you, right? Someone that can challenge you, because complacency is death, man. You can't be complacent in life. You can't be complacent in your job. You always need to, try to strive to be better at what you're doing. And if you're complacent, that's how you get replaced. So no complacency in the Detroit Lions organization. They want people that can push them to be better. And Dan understands that. Dan wants to be pushed to be better too. And the sharper, smarter minds that he can get around him, the better he's going to be at his job, because they're going to see things that maybe he didn't see. They're going to mention things that maybe he didn't even think about. And it just makes you better collectively as a group. But go ahead.
Yeah, just these guys are putting together one heck of a resume. So we've talked about a bunch of people today. So we're looking at the offensive coordinator position and internal guys. So far we've talked about Antoine Randall L. We've talked about Scotty Montgomery. We talked about Tanner Ingstrand, Mark Brunell, and Hank Fraley. So there's 5 or 6 guys right from the Detroit Lions that have a shot at possibly becoming our next offensive coordinator. And that's from within. And now I subscribe to the thing from Justin Rogers, and he put together quite a list of external options. And I don't know if any of these names would, turn the meter for us on any of these guys, or if they would seriously look at any of these guys, because I really think they're going to try to go from within with both offensive and defensive coordinator. I don't think they're going to look too much outside. But in his press conference yesterday, Dan Campbell said they are going to look outside of the Lions organization. They're not going to look just from within. So you have to think that at least one of these guys on this list might get an interview for offensive coordinator. So I'll just go through a few of these names. I don't really know much about them, but we'll go through these names. So Los Angeles Rams tight ends coach and passing game coordinator Nick Caley. The Buffalo Bills quarterback coach Ron Curry. Houston Texans quarterback coach Gerard Johnson. New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak. That's a name I've heard before. Cincinnati Bengals QB coach Brad Cragthorpe. Former Tampa Bay Buccaneers OC Byron Leftwich. He just got an interview for that Patriots job and then did not get the Patriots job. Here's one for you. Minnesota Vikings QB coach Josh McCown. He played for us for a split second, if I remember right. And then Philadelphia Eagles pass game coordinator Kevin Patullo. Former Colts and Panthers head coach Frank Reich. There's a name we all know. Los Angeles Rams passing game specialist Nate Shalihas. And Denver Broncos quarterback coach Davis Webb. So I don't know if any of those names would do anything here in Detroit. I know a few of those names, but most of the names, I don't even know who these guys are.
So I would say this, without doing any research at all and knowing who some of these guys are and what they're good at, I would say if Mark Brunell leaves, I would like to see Byron Leftwich come in as a quarterback's coach. If he would take a downgrade, I wouldn't mind seeing Byron Leftwich in that position. Minnesota Vikings quarterback coach Josh McCown is a real option for an outside offensive coordinator opportunity, Josh McCown. And not real high on Frank Wright. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't be an opportunity, but offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, he's probably in the middle of the fray. I wouldn't think that he's at the top anywhere. And then Buffalo Bills quarterback coach Ronald Curry, I think that is somebody that could come in as a an offensive assistant, offensive, I mean, if there is an offensive coordinator assistant, maybe. I mean, maybe, so if Dan Campbell was to call plays, then maybe you bring in an offensive coordinator as an assistant that you groom into an offensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't think the Lions are going to go anywhere without an offensive coordinator. They're going to bring somebody in or hire somebody from within. But I think that right now, Scotty Montgomery is probably the odds-on favorite on the internal side. Now, someone just mentioned a couple of names here. TJ Lang and...
Oh, really?
TJ Lang and Jason Kelce. So, I don't know enough about Jason Kelce other than he's had a crazy good career. I think that he really likes what he's doing in the media circus, but he's kind of had a rough go at it this last year. He's really been in the news for all the wrong reasons. But he is an extremely intelligent individual. I mean, he was one of the best centers to ever play the game. So that is an interesting option, but he's never coached before. And I don't know that I would want somebody to come in that's never coached before, as far as an offensive line is considered. I think you still want somebody that has experience to come in, especially with an offensive line that is as experienced as ours is. Teddy B. So Bucky mentioned Teddy B for a coaching position. Now we know that Teddy has been pretty pointed with saying, I don't want to coach in the NFL. And that's because he enjoys his sleep more than anything else. Teddy's going to be heading back to Florida, if he's not already there, to coach the high school team again this season and hopefully run it back and two-peat down there. I don't expect him to coach in the NFL anytime soon. And that's just based off of his comments. Does it mean that people's minds can't change? Sometimes the offer's just too exciting. It's too good to pass down. Real quick, as far as Ben Johnson, as far as his money goes, we've been hearing numbers up into the $90 million range for Ben Johnson, $15 million a year guaranteed, but a 6-year, $90 million deal or something close to that he's going to get in Chicago.
Yeah. So the report I saw today is he's going to get $13 million per season.
Guaranteed or all in?
That's what they're saying is it's going to be around $13 million a year, and that the highest coaches in the league are at $16 million, and most first-time coaches are around $8 million. That was the article I read this morning, that they're guessing that he's breaking the bank for a first-time head coach. But none of those numbers are out yet. That'll be later today or tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I think that Dan Campbell, he makes $11 million. So if he's going to go over there and make $13 million a year, maybe Sheila ponies up some dollars. But like I said before, to everybody out there that was thinking that Sheila can just pay him to stay, it's never been about the money.
No,
these guys were paid very well, and to become a head coach in the NFL, Ben is now going to be one of, I think the number's like 530 ever to coach in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So over the last 100 years of football, 530 head coaches is all there has been. You want to talk about one of the most rarest jobs in the world. Being a head coach in the NFL is it. It is one of the most rarest jobs in the NFL. Even though, 5, 6, or 7 jobs seem to become available every year, I mean, that's 5 or 6 jobs out of 300 billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we talked about futures this morning. We've talked about Ben Johnson. We talked about Ben Johnson's replacements. It's 10 after 9. I'd like to do a quick ad from one of our sponsors, and then I want to get into Aaron Glenn. Be right back. Technologies and C3 Mitts, the ultimate hunting and multi-use glove system for hunters and outdoor enthusiasts. Now, C3 Mitts are designed to keep your bare hand protected and warm no matter what the weather throws at you. The patented attachment system was designed to keep your hand on target with the ultimate feel of comfort, confidence, and control. The triple layer barrier of moisture wicking material combined with 200 grams of thinsulate insulation locks in the heat, but not the moisture. That hot hands pocket adds extra heat when the temps dip below freezing. Rain or snow, no problem for C3 mitts. The durable outer shell is water resistant and windproof, shielding your hands from the elements. C3 mitts has solved the cold, stiff, and shaky hand syndrome that all hunters have faced, causing you to miss opportunities on your hunt. Whether you're stalking your prey, chopping wood, or simply enjoying a winter's day, C3 mitts have got you covered. So this winter, keep your hands warm and your adventures going strong with C3 mitts. C3 mitts, warmth, comfort, confidence, and control. I guarantee it, or your money back. Make sure you visit c3mitts.com right after the show. Okay, Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn will be gone today.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted 12th overall by the Jets in 1994. It appears that he is now the favorite heading into today to be the Jets' new head coach. Now, the Jets have interviewed over 15 candidates, I believe, for their vacant general manager position. They have interviewed, I think, 16 candidates for their vacant head coaching job. And the Jets, of course, still remain without a GM. They haven't hired anybody yet, which kind of complicates things, especially if, Woody Johnson wants to bring in Aaron Glenn. But to that end, the Jets are set to interview none other than the Commanders' assistant GM, Lance Newmark, today for the second time. Now, there's only 3 second interviews happening that we know about right now with the Jets. Newmark, who's in his first season with Washington, spent the last 26 seasons prior to that with the Detroit Lions. And he has worked with Glenn, and as has been reported, has a really good relationship with Aaron Glenn, just as he did with Ben Johnson. Now, Aaron Glenn also interviewed virtually with the Saints, with whom he also has ties and history with. He's coached the defensive backs in New Orleans from 2016 to 20. And then he also played there in 2008. Now, per the reports, Aaron Glenn is on his way right now, or tomorrow, to visit with the Saints on Wednesday for an in-person interview, while the Jets are still trying to figure out Lance Newmark today. I am understanding to the fact that if Lance is hired in New York, that Glenn will be a lock for the job. If Lance is not hired by the Jets, Glenn may be headed to the Saints. Now, I need, I guess I needn't really, well, let me rephrase all that. The candidates that are getting interviewed by the Jets is simply Aaron Glenn, Jeff Hafley from Green Bay, and Lance Newmark. So I guess I really don't see another option for the Jets. If it's not Glenn and Newmark, I would be highly surprised. I think that now that Ben Johnson's in Chicago, that removed one of the options for Aaron Glenn. I personally don't think that Aaron Glenn would have ever gone to Chicago. I don't think that he would have stiffed Dan Campbell like that. I think that he has too much respect for Dan Campbell. Maybe that's the difference of being an older, wiser, man that Aaron Glenn is versus Ben, who's still pretty young. Jeff Hafley's an interesting option for the Jets. You can clearly see that they're going with defensive minds in New York. But I'm expecting that today we're going to find out that Aaron Glenn is going to be the Jets head coach at some point. And it should be soon, probably before noon.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts today on this?
So I'm looking at X right now. Ian Rappaport just put this out. A monumental day. Top target Aaron Glenn visits the Jets today, and the goal is to keep him from leaving the building, sources say. The deal isn't done yet, and there are some particulars to discuss, but if all goes well, he could end today as the head coach of the New York Jets. And if not, the Saints await. And that's from Ian Rappaport.
I guess I'm not, the last time we talked about this last week, I said the Jets made a lot of sense. And then I kind of sided with the Saints, even though I had Glenn is my lock to the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of made sense with the Saints because of his history. I guess it depends on what Glenn really wants to do. Does he want to deal with Aaron Rodgers? Does he want to deal with Woody Johnson and the grandkids? Is he not worried about any of that? I think the hierarchy here of how much control is Aaron Glenn going to have? I think that's the biggest thing that any coach probably worries about is, am I going to be able to get the players that I want and that I need? And if you have somebody like Lance Newmark installed as the GM that you have a relationship with, it's a little bit easier, right? If you can hit the ground running, that, you both have 50-50 powers in this, kind of like with Dan and Brad. They're 50-50. Now, Brad will make the end decision no matter what, but they go into every draft 50-50, and they have constructive conversations about it as reported. Don't know this firsthand. And they really work things out. And I think they've done an excellent job, together in Detroit. And I think that's what Aaron Glenn is looking forward to. Unfortunately, Ben Johnson's not going to have that. He's going to have to deal with Ryan Poles. I think the difference there is Ryan and Ben are like the same age. So I don't know, man. I think that Ben's going to struggle, but Aaron Glenn, I don't think he's going to struggle. I think that he's going to be able to turn whatever team he goes to around. It may take a couple of seasons, but I think he's going to do a good job.
I read an article last night linking Poles and Ben Johnson together. They were both assistants, or they both did not assistants, like a program at Boston College. Both of them. They weren't there at the same time, but they both went through the same assistant program at Boston College. So it kind of links them. They were 1 year apart at Boston College. So they both are very young and both very inexperienced as far as the whole NFL thing goes. So I don't know. I wish them luck, but just not against my Lions. Hope they beat the Packers every year for 20 years.
That's right.
Good luck.
All right. Have you done any research at all or looked at any of the defensive coordinators that are possibly available?
Not yet. So with the defensive side of the ball, that Calvin Shepard would instantly be a fan favorite to get the job. I would love to see him move up in the ranks. I liked it when Dan Campbell, when he came in to do his interview to be the linebackers coach, he's like, should I cut my hair off? Blah, blah, blah. And Dan's like, no, be who you are. Keep your hair. Be who you are. And do the same thing when you're coaching. Be who you are. Don't be someone else. Don't be who you think I want you to be. You be you and do your job the way you're going to do it. So I love Calvin Shepard. I think he's a great underdog story. I would love to see him move up in the ranks. Maybe it's not defensive coordinator yet, but I would love to see him move up in the ranks somehow to have more involvement, because that guy, he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He is always focused and always attentive to all of his players. He hasn't had the best talent to work with. Now, Anzalone and Jack Campbell, a couple of great linebackers, but he needs some help in that room if he's going to stay the linebackers coach. We definitely need a linebacker or two this year. Injuries really decimated that room with Derek Barnes and Rodrigo going out, for the season. That really stings, really hurts your chances. But I think Calvin Shepard would be a great person to move up. We've already spoken about Terrell Williams. I think he was brought in to be the next defensive coordinator. And who else do we have on defense? I'm not even really sure.
Let me talk about Terrell Williams for just a moment.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anybody really. Okay, so you have Deshaun Townsend, right? Cornerbacks coach.
Yep.
His name has been flirted around. These are internal options, not external.
Yeah.
And then you have Calvin Shepard, who's been flirted for a couple of seasons. And then you have Terrell Williams. So I'm just going to cut through the fat on this one. Mm-hmm. Terrell Williams, to me, is the guy. I think that Aaron Glenn does not do what Aaron Glenn does this season without Terrell Williams or Terrell Williams. I think that he was instrumental in helping Aaron Glenn to control the chaos of losing more than half of our defensive starters all of which, I mean, think about it. A lot of these guys are on the defensive line and linebackers. Who's primarily responsible for that? Calvin Shepard and Terrell Williams. And primarily, Terrell Williams is the guy. Like, he's the one that was putting all the fires out. He constantly had different guys coming in on that line, having to, turn them into defensive ends and, turn Levi into what he became this season, and Josh Paschal, who obviously has kind of reset his timeline in Detroit with the way that he played this season. And I think that he's going to go back to being more of a defensive tackle next year. But we've seen a huge growth out of Josh Paschal, a guy that we've been waiting, to become something as a second-round pick, and it's just taken a few seasons. If Terrell Williams is not the guy, we're going to lose him. He's gone. And here's why. Mike Vrabel over in New England is already putting together a list. And according to Mike Reese, who's an insider for ESPN, he said that the Patriots' defensive coordinator role is more than likely going to be Terrell Williams. Quote, Vrabel isn't putting a timeline on forming a staff, in part because some of the coaches he plans to talk to are still involved in the playoffs and potentially could be involved in Super Bowl on February 9th. One such example is Detroit Lions defensive line coach, run game coordinator Terrell Williams, who was one of Vrabel's most trusted assistants in his 6-year tenure as Tennessee Titans head coach. Vrabel thought so highly of Williams that he added assistant head coach to his responsibilities in his final season. Some around the NFL believe Williams would be Vrabel's ideal pick as the defensive coordinator. Now, I think that this fits within the Rooney Rule as well, because he's not a coordinator now. Oh, we just lost Eric. Don't know what happened. We'll come back when he jumps back in. There he is. 1 second, Eric. Let me get your audio set. So now I forgot what I was saying. I was talking about Terrell Williams and the fact that I think that he's still an ideal candidate to become the Lions defensive coordinator. And the Rooney Rule, as far as I understand it, if he goes to become a defensive coordinator somewhere else, that should fall in the line of the Lions getting another compensatory pick for 2 seasons. So Aaron Glenn, when he becomes a head coach, we're going to get 2 compensatory picks, one this year, one next year. If we lose Terrell Williams too, we're going to get another compensatory pick this year and next year. If we lose, Ray Agnew or another executive personnel position that is a non-coach position, I think that there's obviously a third compensatory pick that you're going to get for 3 years. So even if you lose one executive and one coach, it's compensatory picks for 3 seasons, the way I read the rule. So imagine if we lose Terrell and we lose, or Terrell, however you guys want to pronounce it, if you lose Williams and, let's say Ragnow finally goes somewhere, Ray Agnew, sorry, and Aaron Glenn, that's at least 3 compensatory picks for the next 3 seasons. Are the picks more important than the coach? I don't think so, in my opinion. I would love to have all these 3rd-round picks because I think that Brad Holmes will do wonderful things with them. It'll give us an opportunity to move up, into the 1st and 2nd round, or move from the 28th pick maybe into the middle of the 1st round to be able to grab the defensive end, and the linebacker that we're really going to want moving forward. But I think that Terrell Williams is the pick for a defensive coordinator right now. And if he's not, if the Lions don't act fast, he's probably gone. Eric, did you hear all that? Nope, I don't have any audio from you, buddy. Yeah, your audio's gone. All right, let me go to the chat. What do you guys think about Williams? And what do you think about the fact that we're losing, so many key pieces right now in Detroit, or the potential for us to lose so many key pieces? What did someone just say about Eberflus? What's the Eberflus comment in here? Bringing Eberflus in, is it a DC? I don't know about all that. Let me wind back the chat here for a minute. If Ben backed out of this, he'd never get a head coaching shot again, but he'd be an absolute legend in Detroit. Yeah. Yeah, Ben wasn't coming back. Oh, Arf, I see that comment. I think that's hilarious. I'm going to start calling BJ something else because of Ben Johnson. Man, I can only see what's about to happen. So, Terrell Williams, what do you guys think about him? Do you think that he should be the defensive coordinator? I would love to know in the comments below, obviously in the chat, who is your number one option, internal option for the Detroit Lions? To me, it's Terrell Williams. I don't think that there's anybody else. And I love what Calvin Shepard has been able to do. And to Eric's point, he made a very good point that, you know, Shepard hasn't had the greatest room. I think that he had some really good players. And I'm not throwing shade at any of our linebackers, but I do believe that we need a major upgrade still in that room. We need someone that can cover. We just haven't had the best coverage linebackers, and that really hurts the defensive line. So for me, it has to be upgrade the linebacker room. Calvin Shepard has done an amazing job, you know, with the players that he's had. I mean, Malcolm Rodriguez, you know, you kind of take for granted the players that you have on a team until they're gone, right? Then you realize what you don't have anymore. All right, I see Eric back. Let me try to bring him back in. Anyway, you realize what is missing right when it's gone. You know, you take things for granted. And Malcolm, I think, is one of those guys that, you know, a lot of us kind of took for granted. All right. Do you have audio now? Eric?
I should.
All right, now I dropped out. There we go.
Yeah, this is, I don't know.
Well, I reset it, so I had to put myself back in.
This dude showed up again.
Oh, don't even start talking about it. We've gone a long time without him.
Yeah, he friggin' made a return. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I had no audio.
Yeah, it's usually internet. Usually, you know, when your internet drops out like that, it'll start to cancel. So I was talking about Terrell Williams. Did you hear everything I was saying about Terrell?
Yeah.
Yep. Terrell Williams, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
So what do you think, you know, with the fact that there's a possibility that Mike Vrabel would want him? I mean, he was his most trusted coach. Yeah. You know, I think that if the Lions don't act fast, we're probably going to lose him. However, if we lose Terrell Williams and we are losing Glenn, I mean, that's two compensatory picks for at least 2 seasons. If we lose an executive, the way that I read the rule, that would be 3 third-round picks for 3 seasons.
Well, isn't that exactly what the 49ers had happened to them?
Yeah.
And that's how they set themselves up for this Super Bowl window that they're going through right now. It's kind of crashing down on them, but that's how it was all set up, was that they lost Robert Saleh. I can't remember the other guys they lost, but they had all these 3rd-round picks, and they went from having 0 picks to a whole bunch of picks, and then they traded those for even more picks. So, yeah, it can help set your franchise up for at least a little bit of drafting success. And 3rd-round picks, you know, those are Brad Holmes' favorites. They are. That's where he picked Manu. That's where
I don't think he's done as good with his 3rd-round picks.
No,
honestly.
but that's what he likes, those 3rd round. He likes those players in the 3rd round. He always seems to move his way up into the 3rd round somewhere to snag someone.
Yeah, I mean he's done great with some players, but you know, the Manus and that, yeah, he's kind of targeted some projects, right? He's targeted some projects in the middle of the draft, as opposed to, look, man, just go after a better football player, because what does he always say? We want really good football players. We want people that love football. And I think that that's a great thing to have. But I think you also need guys that can step onto the field immediately. And the one way that you get around coaching a little bit, if you're deficient in coaching replacements, is you have even better football players that already know the game, that play at a high level. And if you have all these third-round picks, which you can trade, then you probably should move up into the draft and get some really good football players. If you come out of the draft with 4 starters, like he's done in the first few drafts, and he does it again in 2025, that helps fix a coaching deficiency. You still have to coach the guys up. They're still rookies, but they're going to play at a much higher level, and it's going to be really hard to make a roster anyway that is so loaded. But we need to level up in the linebacker room. We definitely need another defensive end. And I think that having an outside linebacker that can cover in space and can also rush the quarterback from the linebacker position is exactly what this defense is missing. It'll come around.
Yeah. And imagine being Dan Campbell today. I mean, you just lost a game that you weren't supposed to lose. And you're up at the podium crying and you're feeling bad and everything else. And then you lose Ben Johnson to the Bears. And then the next day, you're going to lose Aaron Glenn to the Jets. It has to be demoralizing.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. So someone mentioned Rex Ryan in here. Rex Ryan last coached in 2016, where he was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So he's been removed from the NFL for 8 seasons. I think that the interesting thing about Rex Ryan is I think he makes a great addition to a team as an executive, someone that's behind the scenes as a GM, as an assistant GM, as, you put him in the Ray Agnew type of position, or you put him in, Mike Disner kind of position. Yeah. I don't think he's going to coach again. I really don't. I don't think that he wants anything to do with being on the sideline, at his age. And what's that?
He just interviewed for the Jets job.
That was a GM job, though, wasn't it?
No, coach.
The head coach job?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he interviewed for the GM job.
Oh, I thought it was as the coach.
Hold on. He may have interviewed for a head coach job. I think I reported on that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I could have swore it was coach. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been known to do that a time or two.
I'm pretty sure it was the GM job.
Was it?
He did interview for head coach in January.
I was right one time. Twice this year.
That's interesting, though. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
I thought he interviewed as the GM, though, for somewhere else. Did he not?
I don't know.
No, that's Chris Spielman. I'm sorry. I'm mixing up Chris Spielman and Rex Ryan this morning. Yeah. It was Chris that interviewed for the GM job. It was Rex that interviewed for the head coaching job.
Now, there's an interesting one right there. That's something we didn't talk about. What if Chris Spielman goes to the Jets and brings Aaron Glenn with him?
Well, I think that's, another option, right? If it's not Lance Newmark, if it is Chris Spielman, obviously Glenn's going to want to go there. I said this to my dad on the way home from the game. I got to make a tinfoil hat. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a minute, okay? Chris Spielman's over in New York. Let's just say he's the GM of another team.
Yeah.
Are we going to have more of an opportunity to trade players, to get rid of, players, and or bring in really good players because maybe Chris is really, really just kind of disguising that he's just a plant from Detroit? Right? Kind of what Quinn and Tricia did from New England.
Yeah.
They just came in and ruined our franchise even more than it already was, and we're just shipping players out and bringing in high contracts to help New England. I mean, that's all it was. It was just a way for New England to launder shitty players and dirty money. That's all it was.
Dump them off here.
Yeah. So is that going to be Chris Spielman's job? No, I think he's too high of a moral character guy than that. But it was just a funny conversation. Like, all right, we can have some plants now in the NFL. Is Ben Johnson really going over there to Chicago to be a plant to, just make them even worse than they already are and then ship off some of their players to us that we desperately need at times? Who knows? Who knows? But weird things happen in the NFL. Weird things happen this weekend. There's been a lot of conversation to kind of go off topic here with NFL news. I never did any NFL news today. But Patrick Mahomes, okay, there is a ton of stuff on the internet about Patrick Mahomes and the penalties that happened this weekend.
See, now I didn't get to watch that game.
Oh, it was bad, dude.
Was it bad? I'm going to have to watch it.
So the headline from The Athletic is this: sick of Patrick Mahomes drawing penalties. You are hardly the one, right? We've seen it all season. We've seen it for multiple seasons. Simply, you aren't the only one sick of watching Patrick Mahomes draw critical calls for roughing the passer and unnecessary roughness. It's all part of the modern day tier 1 toolbox, unfortunately. Forget the conspiracy theories. NFL officials have assessed 47 penalties against the Chiefs in the fourth quarters and overtimes of one-score games over the past 2 seasons, including the playoffs. Those same officials have assessed 48 penalties against the Chiefs' opponents in those same critical situations. The yardage totals are similarly close: 307 yards against the Chiefs to 340 yards against their opponents. Just 13 months ago, the Chiefs were the ones complaining about officiating after a big game. Now, Mahomes has a 7-0 record when Clay Martin referees his games. That's very interesting. Counting the Chiefs' 23-14 victory over the Texans in the divisional round on Saturday. But as the table below shows, Mahomes has undefeated records with lots of referees. He's a combined 25-0 with Brad Rogers, Tra Blake, Jerome Boger, Adrian Hill, Scott Novak, and Alan Eck. Update: Cleet Blakeman, with whom Mahomes has his second worst win percentage, has been assigned to the AFC Championship game between the Bills and the Chiefs. Well, Cleet Blakeman has not been, a good referee for Patrick Mahomes. He's 6-5. Still has a win record. He has a win record with every ref in the NFL. He's 104-26 at .800 with all of these refs. Brad Allen, he's 4-4. Cleet Blakeman, 6-5. Walt Anderson, 2-1. Ronald Torbert, 3-1. John Hussey, 9-3. Carl Sheffers, 10-3. Craig Rolstad, 4-1. Land Clark, 4-1. Tony Correnti, 4-1. Bill Vinovich, 8-2. Sean Smith, 9-2. Sean Hockley, 10-2. Alan Eck, 2-0. Scott Novak, 2-0. Adrian Hill, 4-0. Alex Kemp, 4-0. Jerome Boger, 4-0. Tra Blake, 4-0. Brad Rogers, 5-0. And Clay Martin, 7-0. So Mahomes' win percentage of 80% of his starts, it doesn't matter who's wearing the stripes or the white hat. It seems like they all side for Mahomes. But no matter what the evidence says, the optics do not look good for the NFL. They do not look good at what happened on Saturday. He drew 2 highly questionable 15-yard penalties to help win a game in which Houston outgained Kansas City by more than 100 yards, especially when Mahomes tries to trick officials into throwing additional flags. Quote, "The only flops I've seen better than him are Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School." That's what one opposing coach had said about Patrick Mahomes. Will Anderson was called for roughing the passer on Patrick Mahomes on a certain play that did not look good at all. It didn't even look like roughing the passer. But at the same time, Jared Goff totally got, helmet to helmet to the chin, right? He gets lifted off of his feet completely, and the guy that hit him left the turf with his feet, and it was clearly a penalty that should have never allowed, that touchdown to happen. That pick six would have never happened.
You know what we better hear today? We better hear that guy got a fine. A big fine.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. That would be the NFL admitting that they got something wrong. Now, if you've noticed, all these helmet-to-helmet hits, the ones that I highlighted from the 49ers game, They never got any penalties, or they never got any fines.
None.
Right.
Nope.
And then in this game, there was at least 4.
Oh, that one on Laporta was so bad.
Oh, yeah. And it looked exactly like the one in the 49ers game. Same exact play.
Live, that was probably 15 yards from where I was sitting. And there was a referee 5 yards away staring right at Laporta.
Yeah. No call.
No call. He acted like he was going to reach for it, and then he didn't.
It's really baffling to me that we're watching this happen. You know, Henry Tutu was called for a penalty after a hit on Patrick Mahomes too, that it was just a simple football play. Why are they protecting Patrick Mahomes and not every quarterback? I don't care that it's just Jared Goff that I have a bias for, right? Because he's my quarterback, right? He's the quarterback of the team, you know, that I followed my entire life. But I think that there's one thing that I do very well, and that I have an unbiased view on what these penalties should be and how they should be assessed. I've done it for all of the other teams. I'll tell you when I feel that a penalty should have happened for us against another team. But I'm sick and tired of seeing the Lions having to go through this, where, again, that helmet-to-helmet contact would have erased that touchdown and that pick six, because the penalty happened during the play. It would have erased it from the way I read the rule book. They would have had to have gone back. They still would have had the ball, but it would have been a 15-yard penalty from the spot of the foul, which happened somewhere around, I believe, the 10-yard line. So they would have been back at like the 25. And then they would have had to have tried to have scored. If we get a stop there, that changes the game. Or if they kick a field goal, that changes the game. And that's what I was trying to say, on Monday, is that, yeah, there might have been some things that Jared Goff did in this game, you know, with his interceptions that didn't help. But all these penalties that weren't called, that's what really screwed us, to be honest with you. I mean, outside of, yeah, you can't turn the ball over. You can't. You can't have fumbles. You can't have multiple interceptions. But at the same time, there was more that happened in this game that really screwed the Lions. And here's what I want to go through real quick. But before I pull this up, what are your comments on this BS that's going on here?
It's just, there's no equality across the NFL on refereeing, and I will never ever use reffing as an excuse to why we lost. You have to be better than any single call that a referee can make. So we just have to be better, you know, all around. But I do think there is a very, very serious problem with the reffing in the NFL, and it is not equal for all teams. That's all I ask, is just make it equal for all teams. That's fine. And I know there's a human element to it, but if you're going to assess these penalties on defenses against Patrick Mahomes, well, then you better do it against every defense, not just the ones playing against Mahomes.
Well, I will say this. It was a really hard fought game. The Washington Commanders came to play. They outperformed us. I'm not going to blame the rest for the loss. I'm not going to blame everything on Jared Goff. And I'm going to kind of walk through, you know, some of these interceptions of what happened with the points in this game. And kind of, I want to paint a little bit of a picture that it's not just the interceptions that lost this game, but more importantly, I am totally rooting for the Washington Commanders now.
Oh, me too.
And the reason why I'm doing that is because that's who beat us, right? Yeah. If you beat us, you better win the Super Bowl, because this was our year. Unfortunately, we were decimated by injuries, and we could make any excuse left or right, up and down. There's a ton of things that went wrong for us this season with injuries. That is the number one reason why we weren't as competitive in this game, even though I still felt like we had the better chance in this game. The injuries were just too much. They were too much with the defense that Aaron Glenn called that put us into a position. You can't blitz 54% of the time with a defense that is missing everybody. You know, especially after losing Meek. You don't have anybody in the DB room that can hold down Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown now that Meek is out, because you've only got Terry and Arnold and Vildor. And then, when you lose Iffy, I mean, things just kept getting worse, and you're still blitzing. Like, at that point, you got to wake up, Aaron Glenn. You got to wake up and realize that you're putting us in a position to fail. So let's talk about the points real quick. Lions punt on first possession. And then Washington gets the ball, and they go down on downs. Score 0-0. Next possession for the Lions, we score a touchdown. Next possession for the Commanders, they score a field goal. Now, on that fumble on the next possession, this is our third possession, Jared Goff fumbles, and Washington on the very next possession scores a touchdown in 11 plays. So now the score is 9-7 Washington. So they got 7 points off the fumble. Let me keep track of this real quick.
So that would be 10-7.
Yeah, I haven't gone through the extra point yet.
Oh, okay.
So off the turnovers, Washington scores. All right, so we're going to go 7. So it's 10-3. Or, 10-7, sorry. The very next possession, the Lions score a touchdown. So now it's 10-14. Lions are up. The very next possession, again, no turnovers. Washington scores a touchdown. So now it goes to 17-14. The Lions' next possession, we throw an interception for a touchdown. So a defensive touchdown. So that brings the score to 24-14. So they scored 7 off that touchdown, off the interception. However, the helmet-to-helmet contact during that play should have brought that ball back to the 25-yard and forced Washington to beat us and beat the defense at that point. So that is why I can blame the refs for missing that call, because it would have given us a better opportunity. It would have given our defense a better opportunity where we've been one of the best defenses in or near the red zone. Didn't happen. Next possession, though, after the interception, Lions score a touchdown. The game is now 24-21. Next possession, no fumbles, no interceptions. Washington scores a touchdown. What I'm trying to paint here is without any interceptions or without any interceptions or fumbles, no turnovers in the first half. Without any turnovers, Washington scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal. No turnovers. They scored 24 points in the first half. That alone is enough to win the game when you're able to put up 24 points against the defense in the first half. So without turnovers, they scored a field goal. Oh, let me back up. I think I missed one. A touchdown. I'm sorry. They scored 17 points without turnovers. Scored 17 points. At the end of the half, it's 31-21, and 17 of those points came without turnovers. 14 of those points came with turnovers. In the second half, Washington punts. We score touchdowns, 31-28. No turnovers. Washington scores another touchdown. That's 7 more points without turnovers. The next possession, we throw an interception. They score a touchdown 8 plays later. So that's another 7 points for turnovers. The next possession, we score a field goal. They miss a field goal. And then the last interception of the game didn't matter. I mean, it was, 2 minutes left in the game or whatever. The game was 45-31. Didn't really matter. So they scored 24 points without any interceptions or fumbles. No turnovers. They scored 24 points. We put up 31. We could have won the game if there was zero turnovers in this game. You absolutely could have won the game. But where this really pisses me off is that missed helmet to helmet. We could have stopped them there. Could have held them to a field goal. Changes the game. The other 3 helmet to helmet calls that were missed could have changed the game. I don't think that Jared Goff was in, total right mind after the helmet to helmet. I think that he was struggling a little bit, but we'll never know. So when everybody says the turnovers alone lost this game, they still put up 24 points without any turnovers. The defense was poorly called defense by Aaron Glenn. And I guess what I'm saying is the other 21 points that they scored beyond that, due to the turnovers, if Aaron Glenn had us in a right defense, maybe we could have limited or stopped them on those other 3 turnovers minus the interception for a touchdown. So we could have held 14 points off the board had they put us into a better defensive position. That's all that I'm trying to say about this game, is that calling a blitz against an RPO was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You do blitz once in a while, sure. But at some point, you have to realize, I don't have the playmakers on this defense right now. We've gone 15-2 without, hardly any playmakers on this defense for the majority of the season. And we just lost 2 or 3 more in this game. One for sure was Amik immediately. And then Iffy with the hamstring. Brian Branch was banged up immediately. At some point, you just have to go back to the roots of the defense and say, we just need to maintain. We can't go all out. We just have to maintain and try to limit. But by going all out, that gave Washington big plays, big gash plays. And to me, that's what hurt this game the most. Wasn't all the turnovers. Equally responsible was the defense and what was called on the defense. And I get it. People are going to say, well, we didn't have everybody. That's what I'm saying. Because of that reason, Aaron Glenn should have never dialed up a defense as if you had all of your starters in this game. What do you think, Eric?
Watching it live, I kept saying, why are we not getting any pressure on this quarterback? We're not even touching him. He's got 3 to 5 seconds to sit back there and throw the ball on every play. And then when we do get any sort of pressure whatsoever, the edges aren't containing, and he's just running by him and getting out to the edge. Now he's only getting 3, 4, 5 yards a carry, but I couldn't understand the way we were playing defense versus him. I didn't understand it. I still don't understand it. Starters or no starters, your edges have to be able to contain, and they were not containing whatsoever. Muhammad and Zadarius Smith, I don't know what they were doing. Now, Smith had one good play where he got up and batted a ball down, could have had an interception. But other than that, you didn't hear their names all day. They weren't sacking the quarterback, Daniels. They weren't even getting close to him.
Well, that's what doesn't make any sense to me.
Nobody, nothing. So if you're blitzing, you're bringing more than just the front 4. How are you not getting to this kid? They had a Swiss cheese offensive line.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. The reason why they're not getting to the guy is because in an RPO, he has 3 options. And he's one of the best against the blitz. And that's, I mentioned this on Monday too, and on Sunday night, that Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback against the blitz this season. And if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm looking at that stat and I'm saying, okay, I'm without 5 or 6 of my defensive starters. I don't have the guys that can compete speed-wise at least, or coverage-wise, to put our defense in a position of blitzing 5 or 6 guys, and then you remove 5 or 6 guys in coverage, right? Or in space. You've opened up a bunch of holes, talking about Swiss cheese. So it's really easy for Daniels just to go, 2-3 steps back. He was apparently 2.49 seconds of time to throw, which is one of 2 things. Either you're getting blitzed and we're forcing you to move the ball quickly, or you're doing a 3-step drop and it's out because you've committed all these guys on defense. Remember when I went through the whole RPO thing and I said he's going to key on the defender, and whatever that defender's doing, whether it's a safety or a linebacker, if they start to cheat up, he's going to recognize it. And when he recognizes it, he's going to put his player, his X, his hot, into a position to win. And that's what he did. It was 3 steps out, or it was 3 steps. He's pulling the ball back from Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler, and they're just getting through the line and catching a pass, or he's called a hot route, to quickly be in space to catch a pass. And that's what he did. And that's why you don't blitz an RPO. And if you don't contain the RPO like the Bills did against the Ravens, I mean, they still blitzed at a high rate. But here's the difference. Let me show you something. I think I still have it keyed up. You're gonna be like, what in the world? Why would we do this? Go ahead. You're gonna say something.
Yeah, they just the Bills, they got to him. We didn't get to him.
So the Buffalo Bills injury history versus the Lions. You want to know why the Bills were so much better at getting after Lamar and the Ravens using a blitz against what is considered an RPO system? Here's why. Here's why. Okay, everybody can still hear me, I hope.
Yep.
All right, so here's why, or here's the biggest difference. Let me slim this down a little bit. Try to make it bigger. When your team is this decimated, now we added Kevin Zeitler to the list on January 20, but when you have Amik Robertson out, very early in the game, you had Efetu Melifonwu go out, who was questionable to return. Ennis Rakestraw was on IR. Carlton Davis was on IR. Derek Barnes is on IR. Emmanuel Mosley was out. Aiden Hutchinson's been on IR forever. Khalil Dorsey's on IR. Ali McNeil's on IR. Mekhi Wingo, Malcolm Rodriguez, Kyle Picot, Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, all on IR, right? You don't have anybody to go in and contend with an offense in an RPO system when you don't have any defensive players. Here's the difference with the Bills. Forget January 20, but these guys were questionable to come back, a cornerback and a safety. All they had before that was their linebacker, December 24. And before that was August 27th. So before the regular season even started, they have stayed healthy this entire season.
My God. Could you imagine?
Their defensive ends, their linebackers, their safeties, their corners, they have stayed extremely healthy through this season. So you can blitz when you have the guys that know what they're doing and the guys that have played the entire season, and they're pretty damn good ball players over there. You can blitz and have success when you have the bodies that can do it. You can't when you're the Lions and you have nobody in the game that is really to that extent, to the Bills roster, that good, right? Our guys were decimated. They were put into a position that they didn't deserve to be put in, and Aaron Glenn put them in a position. Our guys were running around like chickens with what. That's what it looked like to me. I look like Alex Anzalone from 2022, the first 7 weeks of the season, when he's just running around trying to tell everybody what to do and trying to put everybody in the right position, and he couldn't play his game because there was so many people missing and so many young, new bodies that didn't know what the hell to do. They weren't prepared. Aaron Glenn put him in a bad situation. That's why we lost this game. And yes, the interceptions did not help. But had we played a smarter defensive plan, we still could have won this game.
Yeah, I think it's pretty equal between offensive plan, defensive plan, and execution by the players themselves. And just overall coaching. Everyone has blame in this. I don't think it's any one thing. I don't think it's just the refs. I don't think it's just Jared Goff. I don't think it's just the offense. I don't think it's just the defense. We imploded from every single direction in this game. It was nothing to do with just one part. It was every part of this engine failed all at the same time, and that's just something that never happened to us all year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like even Dan Campbell said, that the turnovers killed us, right? I mean, it's part of the plan. But when you go through everything that I talk about, it started with the defensive side of the football. You cannot blitz against a team that has been one of the best against the blitz. And then you can't blitz against a team when you don't have the bodies in the depth chart to do it. we're down to third and fourth string guys, and you are sending them up against one of the best offenses in the league, but one of the best offense against the blitz. I mean, it's dumber than dumb. It makes zero sense. And so the defense can't stop the offense at all. You're putting the offense back on the field consistently. It's not going the other way around. And then Ben Johnson decides to not run the damn ball. You're averaging 14 and a half yards per carry through the first 9 carries of the game for Jahmyr Gibbs. And then you decide to start throwing the ball on 3rd and 1. And I know we beat this like a dead horse. That was the other reason why this team failed. If you put the ball in Jahmyr's hands in that situation, you don't turn the ball over. It's that simple. You don't turn the ball over there. If anything, you're going to walk out with a field goal, but you definitely don't turn the ball over and allow the Washington Commanders to go down and score. So that would eliminate 7 points off the board. So again, yeah, do turnovers hurt? They absolutely do. But I think that if you have a higher, cerebral, more intelligent look at this game, you have to look at the mistakes that led to the turnover. You have to look at the defensive strategy that led to the Washington Commanders to just run it down our throat, pass it all over us. And then, yes, you have to look at, what our offense did too. They still put up 31 points. They were still in this game. But then again, you put the ball in JMO's hands and they score 7 points off of that too. Can't happen. It just can't happen. You can blame Jared Goff just as much as you blame JMO, just as much as you blame anybody else on this team. You really could. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, 21 points were put up without any turnovers. So you can't just blame JG here. You have to blame AG. You have to blame Ben. You have to blame Dan. It's just like the NFC Championship game. They imploded. They completely imploded. And it doesn't help when you have 5 turnovers in the game. It absolutely doesn't help. No. But it wasn't all JG's fault. And I think everybody understands that. At least the more intelligent people understand that it wasn't all AG's fault. So anyway, tomorrow I'll be back at it. I've got to run to an appointment. Anything you want to finish with today?
Yeah, so I got one little update here. So this is from Eric Schlitt and Tom Pelissero on X. So Aaron Glenn's interview with the Saints, if he gets out of New York, will be delayed until later into the week. Due to severe weather, the Saints are rescheduling this week's rounds of in-person interviews for their head coaching job. Mike Kafka was supposed to be today with Aaron Glenn and Anthony Weaver scheduled for Wednesday. Interviews are now expected to resume later in the week.
Well, then I think that wraps it up. Aaron Glenn will be a Jet probably today.
Yep.
That there's no way that he's walking out of there without a contract. I mean, I've been high on the Jets. I think the Saints made a little bit more sense when you look at the dysfunction with the Jets, and that could be the only thing that maybe rubs Aaron the wrong way is, do I really want to deal with Aaron Rodgers, and do I really want to deal with, all the other crap going on inside, the walls of that team? Is he going to have enough power to turn it around? That's what I don't know.
Well, if he takes that job, Aaron Glenn is a no nonsense type of coach, correct? Mm-hmm. You didn't see any of our defensive players acting out or doing stupid stuff. So I think he is the type of coach that could come in and handle Aaron Rodgers and just tell him right out in the beginning, listen, that no more of this ayahuasca stuff, no more going to Egypt, no more skipping anything. Otherwise, we're going to find someone else.
He did say that he is done with that whole experience in that documentary that he did.
I didn't watch it. I won't watch it. I refuse to.
No, I did. I had to watch it. As a matter of fact, it was really good. Not only was it really good, I thought that it was done exceptionally well, and I learned a lot about Aaron Rodgers, and I learned a lot more about this experience. It's more than just some drug that they're doing. It's about the relationships that they make and the fact that they're opening up their mind. Look, there's more. You've got all of these stereotypes, that people believe in because of everything that's been painted, about whether it's mushrooms or ayahuasca or whatever. But now you're seeing a lot of this stuff is legal and you can order it by mail these days because the federal government's kind of just giving in and saying, look, we've been lying to you for a long time. This stuff really maybe isn't that bad for you. There is a purpose for some of this stuff, but under the direction of your doctor, you should probably not just do it free will, but I don't know. I think that I learned a lot more about it. So my stereotype about that whole thing that he was doing kind of went away now that I understood it. And I did, some research and listened to what they had to say. It makes more sense now. Maybe it's good for him. I know Aaron Rodgers has been open about the fact that he has suffered, with some mental health things. And this was a way for him to help himself. And I know you hate the Packers, but
no, I'm even beyond the Packers. I cannot stand Aaron Rodgers. I've always thought he was the most smug, arrogant, when he didn't need to be player ever. His family doesn't like him. That's all I gotta say about the guy.
And see, none of that stuff should really come out. You know what I mean?
But there's a way to act and there's a way not to act when you have success. And he acted in a way that rubbed me the wrong way his entire time in Green Bay. And it wasn't the fact that he was a Green Bay player. He could have played for the Jets. He could have played for the Cowboys. He could have played for anybody. And I would have thought the same thing about him.
So I saw Easy's comment in there about Lions not going to the run game after the fourth turnover. That's not true, dude. I'm looking at the fourth possession, and it was pass on first down, pass on second down, pass on third down. And then it was Gibbs up the middle after defensive holding gave us a first down. And then it was Gibbs on second down. Then it was pass on second down. And then it was the pass to Laporta. So even on our fourth possession, they passed 85% of the time. But anyway, we'll see you guys back here in the morning. Go on Pride, go Detroit Lions. We continue on. The show goes on. We'll see you tomorrow.
Shout, tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each play, each kick, we feel alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. Heart of the motor in the screen. We're bound together by football dreams. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the tribe's electrified. There under the stadium lights, when they just thrive. Every touchdown, we're close to Clark West. In Detroit, we stand. Get down there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in.